what is the number one coaster at Holiday World for both of us?
I mean, the Howler.
Not gonna keep you entertained. Not the reason you'd ever buy a ticket to Holiday World.
Welcome to Beyond the Lift Hill, the podcast where we talk about everything in the world of theme parks.
We're two brothers who live for the thrill and adventure, bringing you reviews and deep dives into the best parks around.
Because every park has a story, and we're here to tell it.
Welcome to Beyond the Lift Hill. My name's Alex.
And I'm Adam with Adam's Adventures. You can find me on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at Adam's Adventures 365. What's going on?
Not too much. We're back for another episode. It's been a little over a week since we talked.
We are. Episode 3 already.
Episode 3. It's really exciting. I don't know why I never pictured myself as like having a podcast, but here we are doing it, and it's been really fun so far.
Here we are. I am loving it and just looking forward to getting into this video on our favorite coasters at Holiday World.
Yeah, I'm still learning a ton about audio and video and how to edit and all that stuff. So it's been a blast so far, and excited to continue on tonight.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, well, let's dive in. So we're going to be ranking the top coasters at Holiday World, and there are 6 coasters, and we can just jump right in, Adam, if you want to maybe name off your number 6 coaster, and we can just go down and talk about each one.
Okay, sure. So at number 6, I have the Howler. Now, if you're familiar with Holiday World, this probably comes as a surprise to no one. Full disclosure, I've been to Holiday World one time. Now, Alex has been there several times. It's his home park, so he's going to know a lot more about these coasters than I do, but I have rode all of them except the Howler, so maybe for that reason alone I have it at number 6, but just my background on it, it's their kiddie coaster, not kids coaster or family coaster, but definitely a kiddie coaster. Alex, I'm not sure, but do you only get one lap on that coaster? Is that right? How many?
No, they'll go as long as everyone on the ride wants to go again. They'll usually send you around a second time. So you'll go around once, you'll get in the station, and then they'll ask you, everybody want another lap, and they'll send you. And that usually is indicative of a kiddie ride, correct? When they
yes.
do the 2 laps. Yeah.
Yes. It was my understanding you only got to go once, so that's really cool that they will let you do that. I'm sure the kids love that, but from what I understand, it's just your typical, you get in the train, you go up the little lift hill, takes you around, brings you back through, and just your typical kiddie coaster.
Yeah. There's no thrills to it at all. It's pretty tame. My daughter, who hates roller coasters, she will not get on a roller coaster, rode the Howler and liked it, and she's been talking about going back on it. So that should tell you what you need to know about it in terms of how intense it is. But yeah, it makes sense that would be your number 6. Similar to how last week when we ranked Dollywood, the Whistle Punk Chaser was my number 10. Sure. Because I had never ridden it, and I have ridden the Howler, and it's also my number 6.
Gotcha. Yeah. So with that being your number 6, tell us your perspective on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what you said. You basically go up the lift hill. There's a tiny little drop, and it's basically a circle. Like there's not much to it. It's you should do it once to get the coaster credit, but unless you're a little kid, there's not much point
right
in riding it too much.
Right. It's not going to have a whole lot to keep you coming back, huh?
It's not. No, it's it's one of those where it just, again, it's a great coaster for someone who hates roller coasters, maybe like a little kid that just isn't brave enough to get on the bigger coasters yet, but not gonna keep you entertained. Not the reason you'd ever buy a ticket to Holiday World.
Sure. Okay. So do we want to move on to number 5?
Let's move on. Yep. Do you want to go, or you want me to reveal mine?
Okay. No, I will take this one. So number 5 is the Raven. Now, this may come as a little bit of a surprise. I would imagine there's a lot of people that for this park, they would just have the Voyage, the Legend, the Raven as the top 3. For me, and again, I've only rode each of these coasters once, But for me, I just think with this ride, it's probably the tamest of the three coasters, if you can even use that word. Basically, you come out of the station, go up the lift hill. It's 80 feet up. I think it's a little more of a drop down. And then from that point, you go through a tunnel. And it just, from best I remember, you just kind of take off, good speed throughout the coaster. Um, does kind of have obviously the Raven. It does kind of have a Edgar Allan Poe theming feel to it. One thing you'll notice, the facing on the outside of the building, you'll see a little bit of theming. Once you get on the coaster, you don't really have a whole lot of theming, but as good as these wood coasters are, you don't really need a whole lot of theming. There's not a whole lot of time to really see anything. So that's my number 5. How about you, Alex?
I had the Raven as my number 5 as well. And I agree with most everything you said. I mean, the nod to Edgar Allan Poe is a great sort of aspect of the ride. And I think it's pretty aggressive actually. So I think it's paced pretty aggressively. It's got sort of I don't know if I'd call it like an out of control sensation, but you really do feel in certain parts like, yeah, man, this thing can fly off the tracks at any point. It's kind of neat. And it kind of darts through there's wooded areas. You're sort of darting over Lake Rudolph there. That's near the park, and very beautiful ride. It's also one of those in the afternoons that you can usually get on without too much of a wait. So while everyone is trying to do Voyage or they're in the water park, the Raven usually is a walk on most afternoons.
Very cool. Yeah, so obviously it being Holiday World, I have to ask Lake Rudolph.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, everything in that town is themed to is themed to Christmas. They have by the park, they have Lake Rudolph cabins there. It's just sort of like a campground and cabin site. Actually, where we're going to be staying for Hollywood Nights when we go, and I marathon the Raven, the Legend, and the Voyage like as many times as I can.
Nice.
So yeah, it's a beautiful beautiful little setting there in Santa Claus, Indiana.
Yeah, it's all very appropriate. So from those cabins, I guess you could kind of have a good view of the Raven. Is that right?
You can walk. I mean, you could walk to Holiday World from the cabins. It's
Hmm.
right next door. Like it is right next door.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Okay, so moving on, number 4, G Willikers.
that is some good gravy.
It is some good gravy, so that's why I have it at number 4. One thing that stood out about this ride is just theming. I mean,
Yeah,
it is literally everywhere from the time that you get near the coaster, near the entrance, all throughout the queue line. It is just theming to the max. You've got all kinds of Thanksgiving dinner setup items. You have a refrigerator, you have a
yeah,
kitchen table, you
yeah,
have all kinds of pictures on the wall, you have pictures with talking people. It's some kind of weird mix of like you feel a little bit like you're maybe at the Haunted Mansion, but a little
yeah,
bit like you're at anything but that. It's so cool. You get up near the platform
yeah,
to get on the coaster. You have license plates of all the states. There was something like, if you're facing the coaster, like looking up toward the first lift, there's something overhead, and I can't remember what it was, but you have all kinds of theming there. Getting into the ride, obviously, you start from the platform, work your way back up that first lift so it can bring you back down, send you through the station, make a right, going through the cranberry sauce can, and then you come up on the spike, sends you up a little bit, brings you all the way back. The ride pace is good, very smooth. It's definitely one of those rides that's very re-rideable. But the main thing here, I mean, it's not anything like one of the wood coasters, so it's not
right.
definitely not a thrill ride, but very smooth. Theming's great. It's a really good family coaster. So I'm glad that Holiday World does have a boomerang coaster. I would
Yeah,
expect that those will only get more popular with families as time goes by. It's kind of new to the U.S., I guess. Really for us here, Holiday World was the first one just last year. And I
yeah,
believe another park, you'll have to help me with that one, but I think another park added one last year as well.
yeah. Do you
But
want to know which one it was?
yeah, go for it.
It was Kings Island. They added
That's right, the Snoopy, right?
it's Snoopy's Soapbox Racer, which I will get the chance to ride for the first time this year. But you're right, the Vekoma family style boomerangs are very popular in Europe, but haven't quite made it as popular in the States
Right.
yet. But good gravy, yeah, phenomenal ride. I can't argue with your assessment there.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I just think they'll get more popular with families as times go. And we might get to the point most parks maybe have a boomerang. So just excited to see what the future holds for that type of coaster. And like I said, just glad that Holiday World has one and glad that I've had a chance to ride one. So,
Yeah.
what is your number four?
My number four is Thunderbird, and I have Thunderbird ranked here as a, it was when you hear my number three, it was a really hard decision of ranking these. Thunderbird being a launched wing coaster, I love it. I'll definitely ride it as many times as I can. It's got a great layout. I think includes a lot of vertical loops, a lot of sort of like a barrel roll. There's a near miss with a barn. I think it's 140 feet high, somewhere around there
Yeah,
is
if
the
not, you're really close. Yeah.
something like that, yeah. And the first B&M launched coaster in America back in 2015. So it's got Holiday World seems to be sort of known for this like first now. They're starting to get the first types of these rides, which is great because it's Holiday World being as old as it is, like it opened in 1945, 1946. So honestly, one of the original theme parks in the country. I mean, I know Cedar Point is the oldest, I believe, with like 100 and some years of history, but Holiday World's definitely in the top five of oldest parks in the country.
Well, thanks for the history lesson. I didn't know that, especially on Cedar Point. That's been around for a long time.
Yeah, I believe Cedar Point opened in like 18. Gosh, now I got to look this up.
Are you sure you're
Let me
not
see.
just making stuff up now?
Well, I do tend to make stuff up from time to time, but I don't believe that is this. Cedar Point actually opened in 1870. So yeah, they're celebrating. So what would that be? This is their. Let me see if I can do math here. 155 years. Is
That's
that right?
incredible. Yeah. Not to stray way too far off topic, but throwing that year out, I mean, Cedar Point's been around longer than Major League Baseball.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. It's
that's that's crazy.
it's incredible. We makes me want to go ahead and get down to Cedar Point at some point this year, which I may try to do.
Yeah, you definitely should if you get the chance.
Yeah.
Okay, so my number three is The Legend. And I know for a lot of people, this would probably be easily their number two. I think one thing I've discovered about wood coasters is I know the Raven and the Legend, you have a lot of lateral movement.
Hmm.
With, I think, not to go too far ahead here, but I think with the Voyage, you have your more typical, airtime and what you would expect on a wood coaster. But I think for me, the
Yeah.
Raven, the Legend, the lateral movement, maybe it's just not quite what I'm used to. I think I enjoy more of the airtime, more what you get out of a typical, if you will, wood coaster. But as
Hmm.
far as the Legend goes, it kind of like with the Raven, you come out of the station, go up the lift hill. It's about, if I remember right, about a 100-foot drop. Like the Raven, you go straight into a tunnel, and then from there it just kind of takes off. It's a really good ride. You had mentioned with the wood coasters, the pacing, it definitely has that. All in all, it's a terrific wood coaster, and I think if that wood coaster were in almost any other park in America, it's probably their best wood coaster. Obviously, not to give too much away here, but we all know what's going to be the best wood coaster at Holiday World. So yeah, there's that. What about you? What is your number three?
My number three is Good Gravy, and again, not like you said, not a thrill ride. It's my number three because it is one of the first coasters that I rode at Holiday World. It's got a sentimental value to me with my son. We ride it
Hmm.
every time we go. He really likes it, and so it's the one coaster that we can ride together and enjoy. And we usually rope drop Good Gravy. As funny as that sounds, if all the other thrill rides in the park getting busy, but that's the one we always dart for. But I agree with everything you said about it. The theming's on point. The layout, I think is pretty vanilla. I don't
Hmm.
I don't know that the layout of Good Gravy is going to capture anyone's attention, but the theming is what really makes that ride, and everything from the way that the operators sort of make it feel immersive, where they're asking the people on the ride to whisk. Sometimes it's I don't know, very very fun ride. And depending on where you're sitting, you get a dramatically different ride. So if you're sitting in the back row, you've got more of a big drop. If you're sitting in the front row, you have less of a big drop, but when you're on that spike at the very end, that feels extreme. On the back, you barely have any sort of a spike. So you can get two very, very different rides depending on where you sit on the trains.
Sure. Yeah. And I believe we got to ride both the front and back. Is that right?
We sure did.
Okay. Yeah, I thought I remembered that. Yeah, and kind of you was mentioning between you and my nephew doing the rope drop when he's with you versus maybe when you go by yourself. And again, this is kind of why we all get to come up with our own list because it may not even be what we think are the best coasters top to bottom. It might be based on the experience. The list could change based on if it's you or if you're going with family or you're going with friends or whatever. You'd mentioned like, okay, you rope drop, Good Gravy. I mean, typically we all know that the line time seems to go down more as you get into the afternoon, but if you have your child with you, you want to make sure that you get to ride that with them, so that it absolutely makes sense in that setting. You may not even do the Voyage or the other wood coasters while you're there. So yeah, definitely think that was worth mentioning and just kind of bringing up just for people to kind of have that perspective when they visit Holiday World.
Yeah, I think that, like if let's say that my son starts getting a little braver and wants to go on the Legend and the Raven, those might, or Thunderbird, which I don't know if that's going to happen, but it might one
I
day.
mean, hey, it wasn't
Uh,
that long ago you said you'd never do it. So,
It's true. It's true. So if that were to happen, my list might change, Like that may be something that would cause my list to change just based on, what experiences I could have at the park with my family. But you're right, it's in no indication that I think the ride itself is maybe the fourth best ride just solo, but it's just based on the overall context of Good Gravy when I visit the park.
right. Absolutely. Okay. You want me to jump into number two?
Let's do it.
All right. So at number two, I've got the Voyage. I'm just kidding. I've got Thunderbird. Yeah. So Thunderbird, obviously, the wing coaster I ride the most is Wild Eagle. It's an absolute phenomenal coaster. There are definitely differences though between Wild Eagle and Thunderbird. Obviously, right from the get go, you have the launch with Thunderbird, which I've still only rode that once. But just that feel of sitting there, the anticipation, having the smoke come down, getting you right out of the launch, right into one of the loops. Just a fantastic feeling. The coaster's super smooth. You would mention the height on it 140, 150
Yeah.
feet, somewhere
Yeah.
around there. But yeah, just the smoothness. A lot of the maneuvers are just really cool. You do have those near miss opportunities there as you go through the barn. Just the way that the coaster rotates and all that. It's excellent. Also, with my list, I didn't want to just, go the typical Voyage, Legend, Raven. Kind of want to mix in some variety. Not because my list is right, but just to maybe try to convey to our listeners that Holiday World is absolutely a wood coaster park, but they also have other good coasters as well. Obviously, the Boomerang coaster is excellent. Their wing coaster is excellent. If you put that wing coaster in a lot of parks, it's maybe their best ride.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that. I have heard that people say with Thunderbird that if you get the chance, definitely ride both sides of it. It feels like a different ride. I'm not sure. I've only rode the right side, but
Okay.
definitely if you get a chance, for those out there, if you get the chance to do it, definitely try both sides.
Yeah. So as someone who's ridden both sides, I would say the right side definitely feels more intense, especially through um, the barn, the near
Okay.
miss. just at the angle that you swoop into the barn, it feels to me a lot more intense. So I think you made the right choice on going on the right side. Not to say that the left side is bad by any means, but you just the way that the layout is, you tend to get more swooping and stuff on the right side.
Cool. Yeah, and
So
I would
my
like to
choice, I would always go to right.
right. Yeah, and I would like to say I consciously made that choice to go on the right side, but you know,
Yeah,
sometimes fate just has a way of working out.
that's right.
Okay,
All right.
you're number two.
My number two is the Legend. So great ride, king of the laterals. I
Yes,
would say, when you're on that ride, you are pinned to the side of the train. There
you
is,
feel it.
I mean, you feel that,
You feel it, and
and
the person next to you feels it.
they do, and you guys are going to get to know each other very, very well during that ride. It's the theming is like the bell. That's such an iconic sort of part of that ride is you hear the bell toll, and I think it's like a Sleepy Hollow type theme, right? Where
Right.
sort of
Yeah,
yeah.
kind of like a headless horseman type theming.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So great theming on it. One thing I'll correct you on that you said, you go up the lift hill and you go straight into a tunnel. You do go into a tunnel, but one thing that makes to me the Legend sort of unique is that the drop is actually curved. You don't go straight into a tunnel. You actually curve into a tunnel,
That's
which to me
right.
is
Yes.
like is pretty unique. The Raven has a little bit of that, but not to the extent that the Legend does. And I love that the drop hill just for that is that you go up and then you're sort of going down at an angle into the tunnel.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. I do kind of remember that now that you bring it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that ride very well could be the best coaster in, I don't know, 90% of the parks as far as wood
Yeah.
coasters go. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, it's second best in its own park.
Yeah. Well, should we leave the viewers suspense? What is the number one coaster at Holiday World for both of us?
I
There's only
mean,
one left.
hmm, let's
What's
think.
it gonna be?
I,
Could
I
it could it be that one right there in the background that I have on the screen?
It could. I mean, we could just say the Howler, though. I mean, it could be
The
number one
Howler.
and number six.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, obviously, yeah, obviously, both of our number ones are the Voyage.
Yeah.
If you're
Yeah.
riding a wood coaster, I don't know that it gets any better. I love Thunderhead here at Dollywood. It's an excellent wood coaster. It is, to me, it's intense, but doing the Voyage it's a whole different ballgame. You start going up the lift, you get to the top, you're up 150 some feet in the air, 66-degree drop. You
Yeah.
go through the covered tunnel. I want to say there's 4 tunnels that are
Yeah.
covered through this ride, maybe another one that's just kind of half covered or something. Several of them you come back through on the return, just where the
Yeah.
course just kind of twist in with each other.
Yeah.
However you would describe that. But just the airtime, I believe you get like 20 some seconds of airtime, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I think it's 20,
It's
23
okay.
seconds.
Yeah, it's I want to say the track itself is 65-ish 100 feet of track,
Mhm.
making it the second longest wood coaster in America, only behind the Beast.
Mhm.
Yeah, all in all, some of the banked turns, I think it's like 90-degree angle banked turns. I will tell you, living here in East Tennessee, that kind of felt like I was at Bristol Motor Speedway. That ride will just, I mean, it will
Yeah.
turn you, it will rock you. You better go ready to take a beating, because if you're not prepared for that ride, that might, if
Yeah.
you do it first, that might be your only ride of the day. If you're not ready for it. I absolutely loved it,
Yeah.
but it's definitely one, and I'll say again, I've only rode it once, but it's definitely one. I think the more that I would be able to ride it, I could definitely learn how to better prepare yourself to ride that coaster.
Yeah.
Because I do firmly believe there are good ways and bad ways to ride a coaster. You kind of have to learn
Yeah.
what coaster, not to put your head on the headrest, or you have to position yourself a certain way. And I would imagine the more that I ride some of these coasters at Holiday World, you could figure it out. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's probably no words to describe a wood coaster like the Voyage. So I'll just kind of leave it at that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's a great ride. Yeah, I think there's 4 or 5 tunnels, and I wouldn't recommend riding it at night for the first time because you would never know where the you wouldn't know when to brace yourself, right? So there's like you get at least a little bit of advantage in the daytime because you can kind of see where the drops are. But even if you're in the daytime, there's one time where you go into a tunnel and you get like a triple down element inside of the tunnel where you get so much airtime just inside of a tunnel. It's crazy, and it's always hard to predict exactly when that's gonna happen when you're in there because it's pitch black. So, it's a long ride. Feels like feels like we're probably still on it right now. When we rode it last year, it's like I think it's over what 3.5 minutes long,
Yeah, it's pretty long.
and yeah, aggressive ride. And like I said in the first episode, I am beyond excited to ride it at Hollywood Nights because they run it without that middle trim, and it just goes even faster than it normally does, which is hard to imagine.
Right. Yeah, and I absolutely cannot wait to kind of get your report on Hollywood Nights and just see what you think about it. There's all kinds of things out there about how good it is, but I would
Yeah,
imagine until you actually get there and experience it yourself, you can hear about it, but until you do it, I'm sure that great.
yeah. I'm excited for it, and I'll definitely have a video about it at some point. I'm sure we'll talk about it on this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely can't wait for it.
All right, well that does it. We just ranked the top 6 coasters at Holiday World. We were pretty similar. Our lists were pretty similar. I think we had a couple things out of order. Maybe Good Gravy and Thunderbird were different, but for the most part, our lists were very similar. And I know, like you said, you only had a chance to ride them once, and I think when you did ride them, you had like a headache, I believe, right? Which was probably
Oh yeah.
not the not
Yeah,
the
I
ideal
was
time to
right. I was absolutely feeling it. Because I'll tell you, here at Dollywood, probably the most intense ride.
yeah,
Um, I kind of lean toward maybe Tennessee Tornado. That
I would
one
agree.
usually kind of rocks me more than the other rides, but it's different for
Yeah, yeah,
everybody. You'll hear from some
right.
people maybe it's Mystery Mine. Some people might say
Sure.
Thunderhead. But
Yeah.
yeah, so but just in saying that, I think
Yeah.
all three wood
Yeah.
coasters at Holiday World are way more intense than Tennessee Tornado.
Which is wild because Tennessee Tornado has loops, right?
Yes, yeah, and
Yeah,
that
it
that
has loops
coaster
and
is pretty intense. I don't
yeah,
say that to take that one lightly.
yeah,
But it's just that's
yeah,
just how intense Holiday World
yeah,
is.
yeah. It's a phenomenal time. So definitely make it down to Holiday World this year if you're at all within traveling distance of it. Well, that's all I had. Adam, did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about tonight?
Cool. No, as always, to you guys out there, thank you for watching us. If you're on Spotify, thank you for listening to us. We appreciate you guys, and we hope you have a blessed day. And we will see you on the next podcast.
All right, let me try to find that button.